That's the thing. Okay, so recording now. Are there any outstanding? Yes, Patrick.
I was just curious, as a process point of view, if there's any guidance offered on confidentiality. It's not actually an issue for me at the moment, but just as a process point of view, that's often a concern for people. And I wonder, given that conflict can contain sensitive information.
Okay, well, as Edwin said, and as I just said right now, we are recording, so there is so I can't promise any sort of confidentiality in that way. That being said, I'm a former special ed teacher, and so I take confidentiality sort of as a professional thing. So what I do in that case is that, I wouldn't, if some sort of heated argument, say, erupted here, I personally would not talk about it in very specific terms. If the in the larger group, if the participants wish to, then, that's the rules. You can talk about whatever you want. But generally, we're reflecting, so we're recording, so I can't offer that, but I try to use discretion and discernment and respect people's privacy. So
sure. And then there's no particular guidance offered on it. I suppose the fact that you're telling them it's recorded, that says enough. So
yeah, I mean, it does. But that being said, it's not like this is going out over live TV either. So, so I try to, plus I don't want to put my spin on anything. So like if, for instance, if I'm having a problem or something, which I really haven't in this, I might, I could say something. I probably wouldn't, but anyway. So I just want to welcome Sally. Sally, can you hear us? Sally? You're muted? Okay, I'm seeing something. Sally, no? All right, Sally. We see you, but I can't hear you. We can't see you either. But I see a box for you. So at any time, if you can, break in, that's fine. Otherwise, if you want to just watch, there we go. Sally?
Okay, I can turn my camera on, but well, I kind of have to wait for my husband to leave because I have a small house and he's making some noise.
Yeah, that's fine. So fine, we can hear you. As long as you can hear us and we can hear you, then you can participate. So that's fine. Just do it as makes sense.
Can I just add something about confidentiality?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, the way that I interpret Edwin is that this might be put on YouTube. So if there is something that you don't want other people to know, then I would recommend to not talk about it here. I would just learn the practice of it and then bring conflicts that you feel are private. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, thank you, Sophia.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, the idea here is to basically, even more than the technique itself, is to build bridges and create trust. And so we have a structure.
Practice.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't want to talk too much, and because I'm raring to listen. So generally, if there are two people, if there's would like to speak and then listen, that's fine. Generally, what I'll do is that I don't mind being the role model. Sophia has you could talk to Sophia. She could reflect you as well. So who would like to start speaking? Anybody? Sally?
I am not sure who's in this group.
Oh, okay. You can't see us?
I see you. Did
Okay.
we do a go round?
There's a speaker view, but there's also on the upper right-hand corner, there's something that you can see, I see enter full screen, but gallery view. So if you go up to the upper right-hand corner, you should see speaker view, gallery view. Click on that and you will probably see us.
Well, I just have an iPhone, so I'm not sure.
See. Okay. All right, well,
Yeah.
we can hear you. Would you like to talk for 4 minutes and be reflected?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So, who would you like to talk to? Me or Sophia? We'll start off with one of us first.
Um, okay, you is fine.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay, so basically, as we go along, we'll try to, I might raise my hand and ask you to stop just so I can, capture what I've already gotten if I'm feeling that I'm losing the thread, and then we'll continue. Okay. Oh, right. You can't see. I'll ask you to. I'll ask you to pause verbally. Sorry.
Sure.
All right. I have to improve my skills as well. All right, Sally. So the subject is conflict in XR. It could be conflict of anything else, or if something else is really, front and present for you, then you can talk about that. Okay.
I feel very frustrated about
Okay.
Trump
Okay.
as our president here in the United States. I get the economy. I have a degree in natural resource planning, which is basically environmental planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it very disturbing what's happening to our environment. And as far as checking out the number of years it'll be before the climate change will actually, go into full effect. I know it reversed itself, but it's gonna switch. I just saw a bald eagle today. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a snowy owl. Should not be in our area.
Okay. So you're very frustrated with especially the environmental policies of our current President Trump. You've studied it a great deal. You have a degree, and you're seeing, to your trained eye, you're seeing things like snowy owls and bald eagles that are real indication of the change to come, which will be much more profound than what's happening now. Did I miss anything?
I feel heard.
Okay. All right. Continue.
So I've been looking online just to estimate the number of species that will die out and what the rate it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if we keep going at this rate, basically when all organisms will no longer be able to survive on this planet.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you're researching the rate of extinction and taking to species not surviving. It's quite extreme, quite profound.
My academic advisor, Dr. Rudolph Becking
Mm-hmm.
from Humboldt State, Dr. Rudolph Becking, emeritus, he passed away, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. It breaks my heart because I know he wants or would want me to do everything possible to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I basically feel very traumatized.
Okay. So it seems that you have a very trusting and long-held deep relationship with your mentor, this doctor at Humboldt State, and he passed away 20 years, and you feel really sad about the fact that he would want you to do something about climate change, because that was a very important issue to him, the ecology.
I feel heard. It's, if you go through that much struggle with those classes and then have it all thrown away, my wildlife and biology, ornithology, all the classes I took, and and then see someone as frightening as Trump doing what he is doing, and well, I'm extremely angry and frustrated, and I honestly I understand that I need to be calm and use restorative circle as a method to reach out to people. Maybe a little too angry to do that so far, but I think, as I this is something that's really important worldwide.
Okay. So you're having kind of like a turning point in your life. You're reflecting on your life and choices that you've made, and you're really seeing how important that all these classes that you took and messages and lessons you learned years ago are really coming to the fore. And you're very frustrated that we would have a power structure with President Trump that would just ignore all of that. And so now I feel that you're kind of searching for how to really express and honor your professor's legacy.
I feel heard.
Okay, thank you. All right. So that's it. And then one more, I'll speak to Sophia, and then we can, and generally, just generally speaking, we go around so that everybody gets heard once. And then once everybody's done it, you don't necessarily have to speak to the same person all the time. You can just mix it up. So just like to get everybody involved and foster different connections. That's it. Okay. Sophia.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am seeing, to go into XR and what I'm seeing, I'm kind of coming in from the outside. I'm here in the Bay Area. I've sort of come to it with a pretty mature political outlook, although any political outlook that's too rigid is stupid. So I don't want to be stupid in my last years. So I'm looking also to learn and to be flexible. I'll stop there.
Yeah, you approach this topic from coming from outside.
Mm-hmm.
You have the objective outlook on it, and also where you come from, you have a more positive view on politics, and sort of it sounds like you're more hopeful, but at the same time you don't want to be stupid about it.
Right. Well, that's as rigid, not hopeful, but but I've seen corruption. I've seen all this stuff go on, and I essentially, how the game is played, and it's played essentially with bullies. I mean, the psychodynamics are what goes on in a schoolyard, lunchtime recess. That's where we're at. So I'll stop there.
Yeah. You view politics as for people who are bullies, and you see that you've seen the corruption in politics, and you compare that to being in the schoolyard.
Right. And I don't see like politics is for bullies, but I think bullies dominate our politics right now. And so there are plenty of fine people in politics, But right now, the bullies are having their day. So
Yeah, you don't see all politicians as bullies, but that a lot of them are.
right.
Yeah.
So, and then what I'm seeing is that we really are facing a very daunting challenge with climate change. It's going to require cooperation from really all human beings to a large extent. And at the same time, the two ways that the two choices to get there are the authoritarian path, where essentially conformity is enforced, and then the democratic path, where solutions and things are discussed and come to an agreement comes to consensus.
Mm. So you can see that we have a challenge in the world of climate change,
Mm-hmm.
and you see basically two ways we can deal with this, and one way is the
Authoritarian,
authoritarian,
yeah.
where we sort of force people to change.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other way is the democratic way, where we sort of like cooperate with each other to make change. Is that correct?
That's really correct. Thanks for sticking with me. I feel fully heard. Thank you, Sophia.
Okay, so that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick?
Hi. So I'll be listening to you, Sophia, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Perfect.
So I also got very anxious when I saw James entering this circle, because I've been seeing these empathy circles as a safe place, and I don't view him as a safe person.
Sure. So seeing him really triggered a lot of anxiety because you don't feel safe with him. You don't see him as a safe person.
No.
Sure.
And I also got a little bit annoyed with him saying that we're in a conflict. That is not my perspective. My perspective is that when you're in a conflict with a person, you want to sort of work with that person to create a solution. But I have blocked him on on Facebook because I don't want to have anything to do with him. I don't want to communicate with him because he is not interested in other people's needs. So that's how he sees conflict. It's just like running over other people. So yeah, I've been talking a lot now, but what the conclusion is that there is no conflict. I don't want anything to do with him. That's just how it is.
Sure. So you actually felt annoyed when you saw him because you haven't blocked and you've decided that you don't want anything to do with him. If that's right, you feel that he actually keeps just going over and over. Is it that he keeps trying to make contact with you, or he keeps trying to recirculate the issues? No.
No. Yeah. Just reflect me.
Sorry, I'm just trying to clarify what I heard. It was that he keeps going over and over. You said something like that. I didn't quite catch the sentence.
Yeah, that's the conclusion, that I don't want any contact with him. And
sure.
we've only had one encounter where I just decided, no, I don't want anything to do with him. And so, and because he is blocked, we haven't talked since then. So we don't have a relationship. We don't have a conflict. There is nothing going on. I just don't want anything to do with him.
Sure. So you've just had you only had one encounter with him, so you don't see this as a conflict because you don't feel you have any relationship with him or any
No,
form of contact.
no. But I've heard a lot about him. He is in conflict with a lot of people. I've heard how people feel when they encounter him. I know a lot of people that I care about that has tried to communicate with him. So I feel a lot of empathy for those people who actually try to communicate with him. But I just had one encounter and then no.
Sure. So you know of a number of people who've had conflict with James. You have empathy for them. You've only had just the one encounter so far, and that's all you want to have. Well, I'm adding that part, but you've been saying that you're fairly resolute of that you haven't blocked.
Exactly. And I just want to say one more thing. I heard a bell. I just sat and thought now that with some people, conflict resolution is impossible. Some people have too much issues to resolve conflicts, and I would would love to hear your thoughts about this, because that's what the subject of today is.
Okay, you feel that with some people, actually there's too many issues that conflict resolution won't actually succeed with that person. And are you asking what my thoughts personally are, or is that right?
The whole group.
The group. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
If they like to talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, you'd love to hear. You'd be curious to hear from others how they actually feel about that. If there are some people who conflict resolution just won't work with because there is too many issues.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. Thanks, Sophia. Okay. I nominate someone. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We'll go around. Maybe I'll nominate Helena. Helena?
Hi.
Helena.
Yeah.
Is it Helena?
Helena, yes.
Helena, great. And to to ask anyone in the group, maybe Helena, to remind me of the original topic was about what might be required, like how XOR might be able to mediate and hold conflict better. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, that's cool. The question.
Okay. What will I start with? Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in XOR in Ireland since it started here, just over a year, and even here in the Eco Village as well. It's a community here as well. So I've been I'm a therapist and working kind of with groups. So I find myself in this role often enough of kind of trying to help process conflicts, trying to look at what would be a way we could hold them alongside a few others. And there's a number of us who are kind of doing that, but maybe often feeling we would like more skill, experience, and kind of mentors to be able to help us kind of work with kind of common blocks or things that kind of come up. Yeah, I'll stop there for a moment.
Okay, so you were talking about your background, that you are involved in XR groups in Ireland from the beginning, and also in an eco village, and you have a therapeutic background, so you often find yourself in a position with these groups to mediate and to try to resolve things. And so you and the people from your group who are also in some similar position are interested in maybe guidelines and learning more methods to do the mediation, to resolve conflicts. And that's why you are curious.
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to find what resources there are, because one of the things which we hit into is there's a select number of us who found ourselves kind of trying to offer that and we're a limited resource. Sometimes these things take quite a bit of time. It feels very satisfying if things move along, and yet it feels by the nature of it that, like, while I've done some training in mediation and restorative circle stuff as well, it would still feel, I'd like to be able to bounce questions at someone more experienced in the same way with psychotherapy. I have supervision. Would like to feel more confident in this area, and I'd like to have a sense of a wider resource than the small pool which we are. So I'm curious on this whole call to get a sense of, within the wider XOR groups and organizations, what resources are being offered, how they're finding it, and how we can learn from them.
Okay, so you are interested in resources about mediating and conflict resolution from the whole of the XR network, and how they manage. And so you have this therapeutic as a psychotherapist, you have this background, but you want to have more security and more confidence, maybe, and in certain questions or certain methods that are being applied in XR and maybe work for this network.
Yeah,
for the questions.
Yeah, exactly. Specifically with conflict, just because, and I feel we really want to have that in place before the conflicts erupt, even though we kind of have been working. There's a number of little ones which take up so much energy in little side discussions, because when you're not having it direct, you have the same conversation over and over again, and the same kind of conflict happens over and over again. So it feels creatively we should have a better way that's how it feels to me, rather than stuck with history repeating. By and large, my preference is to be direct in contact contact with someone. Okay, that's the.
Okay.
You can finish. Finish up.
Okay. So what I understand is that you feel it's the way you are doing it now, or maybe it is done now in your circles, feels futile oftentimes, because you have the questions and they repeat itself, and it's kind of repeating cycles, and you feel that there must be good methods that actually could resolve this futility and bring you one step further.
Well, I don't mean our methods of trying to resolve it being futile. I just mean the common nature of conflict, which in as much is more what I mean, where we have side conversations rather than direct conversations. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then so then you it's more about the nature of conflict, that's what's worrying you, because it often sidetracks, and you want to work more directly with the nature of conflict itself, and so that it can be resolved more easily and elegantly.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thanks, Helena.
Do you feel heard? Sorry.
Yeah, I feel heard. No, I'm good. Thank you for that time. I'm all right.
Okay. So I nominate Sally.
Okay, Sally, can you hear?
Hi.
Hi. So I may be by telling about myself then. Hello? Oh, there was just an echo, I think. So I kind of feel a little bit anxious and overwhelmed about this situation here, because I don't know anybody here, and it's the first time. And I have, in recent times, I started having this trust issues, more with dealing with people. And so it's not about person specifically, but I know now that it's more about myself. But I'm interested in here because I think I could learn through the wider through your methods. I could learn something for my personal conflicts, because I really feel that they hold me back from engaging more in outward, like political and stuff like this conflict. They hold my energy back for that.
You feel anxious and overwhelmed, and it's not necessarily about this, but you're looking to make this methodology a way for you to resolve some of your trust issues with people. And so you're looking for these methods in this group to help move you forward and keep you from holding you back from moving forward.
Yeah,
Helena.
yes, and it's like it's one of the resources I try and read different stuff, but this is actually something that I can participate in, and it took some courage from me to do that, but yes, I'm willing to try everything for that, because the more and more I looked at it, the more I've seen that it's really within me, this conflict that I have been always looking outwardly, the political and the ecological and all this stuff. It's like there's a divide. I know about the politics and the contents and stuff like this, but emotionally I'm kind of unable to move it forward, to really embody what I know and what I believe.
You said you tried 3 different methods, I guess, to resolve this, and you're looking for courage, and you're willing to try with this method, and you want to be able to look outward, and there is a divide between what is happening environmentally and politically and what you know, Helena. How is that?
Yes.
Submissive?
Yes. There is a divide between what I know and what I don't know, and it's about the outward stuff that I know, and the inward stuff about emotions and trust, and how to actually effectively communicate and be happy with others, like, boundaries and stuff like that, and your own needs. And this is what kind of is in the forefront for me, what I think is holding me back from the others. Yes.
Okay. There is a divide. And you that your emotions are in conflict, communication boundaries are an issue and in the forefront holding you back.
Mhm. Yes.
I know I missed it that time, but I'm
No,
trying.
no, it's good. So I'm kind of not sure what I can contribute to the asked question, to the question of this meeting, but I will try my best to maybe generate some ideas while we speak, because this is this is how I usually, how my brain works in the process.
You will ask questions and generate ideas while you speak, and you feel like you're struggling a little, and but you're saying what you feel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will generate, I will try to contribute to the question, how to facilitate conflict through discussions, through the input that I also get, and this usually inspires my thinking. That's how my brain works. Like I like to more do it with other people than by myself. It's more easily it's easier for me because I get more inspiration through other people for that, for thinking.
You're saying that it is easier for you to communicate when there are other people present. It inspires thinking and it facilitates the way you think to come up with solutions for this method that is being developed here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easier to think, but not to communicate necessarily.
Okay. So time is up. Can I reflect you just briefly, Helena, to make
Yeah.
sure? So essentially what I was hearing is that because of other, past things, you kind of have an internal conflict. And there's and that helps, it makes it hard for you to direct your energies outward in the political world. And before you were doing that and you didn't get resolution, so now you're trying to basically deal with that internal conflict, and you do that through participation in a group activity such as this that kind of takes you a little bit out of yourself, so you can kind of get that objective view of yourself and just kind of see where you are. And then also you're fully confident that once you do that, you'll be able to contribute, because that's the way your brain works.
Yes, that's more, that's most of it,
Okay.
except the last part with that I want to see myself objectively in this context. But it's just more interesting for my brain to work. Like it's more inspiring. That's why I go to the groups to think about it, and maybe to learn emotionally from others, and
Okay.
give my mental input because that's easier for me.
Okay. So then the part I missed is the excitement and the creative energy you have in participating in these groups, simply stated.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Sally, who would you like to speak to?
Helena?
Okay, you want to talk back to Helena? That's fine.
She already, no, I thought I was,
So
I hadn't listened yet.
sure,
but
that's okay. It's hard because you don't see us on your
okay,
screen. So essentially, everybody has had a turn. And so
okay,
there's me, Bill, Sophia, Patrick, and Helena. And so you talked to me last time, and, so now we sort of mix it up. You might want to talk to some people that you haven't talked to before.
thinking, How about Patrick?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So go ahead, Sally. Do you want to share what it is? I'm here to listen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So, okay, Sally, do you want to share then what's in your mind at this point? Well,
I
what's a
was,
life on?
yeah, I was thinking that we need to, I was thinking with these groups worldwide, that maybe the leaders should step up and have kind of like groups. Maybe this is something you already do at a scale with the leader of the groups in the other regions. I'm not sure. Is that something in the works, or because I'd really like this to move forward a little. You know, that's I'm just time-wise a little more concerned.
Sure. Just to clarify, so you're wondering, should the leaders in these groups step forth? And I didn't fully understand if it's work with each other or work something with regionally. If you could say again, please, so I can understand.
Right, for the XR facilitator
Facilitator.
empathy circle, for the purpose of moving ahead with problem solving on a more global basis.
Sure.
I'm thinking that there's people at different levels, and so I'm just thinking it probably would need a little more coordination.
Okay, so you're thinking that the kind of coordinators or empathy circle facilitators, if they could step forward, is it, and work? Yeah, or you would like to see more of that work, and you're wondering what's needed in terms of coordination. Is that right? Or is there a particular area that you would like them to step forward into? I'm trying to get...
It's basically it's there. We have a president here in the United States who's telling the world, and he really does speak to the world, you know, everyone listens to him, that there's no such thing as climate change. And us, biologists, scientists, know that there's something more at large. And I think that the leaders probably, could come up with a strategy for the, the little guys within the group, and it's just my read on the situation.
Sure. So you're concerned. It's that you're concerned again, just about the president that he's of America, Trump, that he's speaking to the world, and people do to listen to him, and he's denying climate change, and where biologists and people who know more factually know that there are some serious issues, and you're wondering if the leaders, maybe you mean the XOR empathy facilitators or so on, if they could in some way help in some regard. Maybe you mean like to allow people to mature, to listen, to connect, to understand truth more fully. I'm guessing the last part. Is that right, or did I miss something?
Yeah, but time is out, so I feel heard. That was what I
If you have
said.
a correction to make, we can, you know.
Well, I just think we need to move ahead. But you know, I don't. Well, Trump is suing Greenpeace, and you know, we're kind of a hidden group, so we might be able to do something more effectively.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just, well, you're aware that Trump, like, of the threat of Trump, that he's actually, well, you're mentioning that he's suing Greenpeace. So, you know, you're wondering about Greenpeace, you're wondering about the leaders of XOR and what we might be able to do effectively. Yeah, is that right?
That we could probably do it without being noticed, but I feel
Okay, that we're a small group.
complete. Yes, yes.
Yeah, being smaller than Greenpeace, maybe we might be able to do it without being noticed.
Okay, I don't want to interfere with other people.
Okay. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
Okay. I nominate someone to listen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll go with you then, Bill. I'll
Okay.
turn to my left. Yeah, after speaking, I'm still with that sense of trying to, because I think there will always be conflict between well-meaning people, between some people. Well, there will always be conflict. And in the regenerative culture part of things, we're trying to find a way to acknowledge that and to work better with it. And I'm still weighing up the resources that are needed to try to manage that. And I'm thinking that includes the likes of maybe our kind of group who will offer to intervene and to try to assist with dialogue. It includes these empathy circles. And it includes trying to support events that help people skill up on being able to communicate better, on being able to build bridges between them, and trying to do the things that prevent toxic conflict happening. So these are in some of the resources.
Okay. So you're really delving into the fact of conflict between well-meaning people, and that you're doing some research and experiences to learn what kind of resources are available to do that. And then what sort of scale those resources would be needed on in order to effectively change and make more functional our dialogues and goings on.
Yeah. And been interested in this quite a while. It can be kind of scary sometimes to enter into dialogue with. I'm thinking the question Sophia asked the group in terms of if some people are just, if conflict if trying to work, if some people of these kind of methods don't really work with them. And it's an interesting thought to me. I think some people engage with this type of thing more readily and easily, or more willingly. I think I can think of a number of people who often it can be very hard to work with, because I find that they're hard to engage with because they don't want to engage. And then some people who, I'd be scared of working with a little bit because I might question their motivation. And I've seen a history of repeated conflicts as well, which just means that makes me suspect that it's not going to be straightforward or wrapped up too quickly. But at the same time, I also don't want to hold a fixed view. I don't want to just hold a fixed view of someone, because I think that's that in and of itself prevents you getting further. And I think things can always change. Doesn't mean that they will, but yeah.
Okay. So you're really, I can feel that you're kind of delving into this in a very intimate and kind of like focused way. And you were talking about, the type of things like what Sophia mentioned, where there's a certain amount of fear and things like that. And you don't, as I understand it, this is my interpretation, but you don't want to have people who are forced into this kind of, false intimacy or false process, sort of like for the tyranny of the process, if they're not ready for it. And, and then you look at people who just don't want to engage, and that's one way, and that's hard to work with. And then there are people who habitually create conflict. And so, and that requires some limit setting and some sort of like maybe some censoring. But on the other hand, you don't want to get a rigid and fixed view yourself that you can't deal with these people or these people can't grow as well.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, anything else to finish up?
Yeah. No, within the time that I could go on, but for what I've said, that's good. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll stick to the 4, and then after I'm done, if people want to go for 5 minutes, we're at 11:17, so we have about another 20 minutes. So if people want to say things, okay. Helena, I'll speak to you.
Yes, I'm muted.
Great, thank you. Well, it's interesting. I find a lot of parallel processing here. Like what I see from Patrick is sort of, I'm not a therapist. I was a special ed teacher, but I worked in psychiatric hospitals, and I worked very intensely with therapists and psychiatrists and stuff for 40 years. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so you see a lot of parallel processes, especially with Patrick, although you are not exactly in the same field of therapy, but you of psychotherapy, but you were doing special. You're coming from the field of special education, so you have experiences with in psychiatries and this context.
Yeah,
okay.
And from that perspective, what I'm doing and the reason I'm here is because what I feel to address, when I address the same issue that Patrick had, is so far that, what do you do with resources and stuff? It's very hard to allocate enough resources to have excellent trained personnel go out into the world and train everybody up. I'll stop there.
Okay, so what your experience says is it's very hard to allocate enough resources to really train enough and train well enough the people to that can go out and train others.
And so, yeah. And so that's why I'm in this process, because this is a very easy process to learn, that essentially it can be peer-to-peer. It doesn't have to be professionally learned. And it actually prepares you for therapy, and it creates, and restorative justice and the rest of it. It creates the emotional safety for that groundwork.
Okay, that's why you find these empathy circles and what we're doing here now a very good resource, because you can directly learn peer-to-peer, and you don't need the special place for that or special context. And it's actually also learning that's within, that's like an emotional learning, because it creates resolve, what you said, within.
Yeah. And then, as far as conflict, what I see is that we have to address what are seeming paradoxes. If we are going to address climate change, that means everybody has to get on the same page. And for everybody to voluntarily do that, I don't consider authoritarianism as a viable option. So for everybody to do that, people need to feel heard. And that means that we need to go through a certain kind of growth. And I also want to acknowledge, and that means we have to find what I call our own greatness. And Helena, I would just like to express that I saw you finding your own greatness in confronting your own fears and then joining with other people. And that's exactly the small step I think we all need to take. I'm done, and my time is done. So reflecting.
Okay. Okay, so you addressed the paradox that climate change, or how to resolve this paradox, that climate change needs to be really accepted and worked with by everybody. And the options that you mentioned earlier, the authoritarian and the democratic, the authoritarian is not really an option for you actually. And so we, in order to do the other option, the democratic one, that where everybody does want voluntarily acts against climate change, is the prerequisite for that is to foster a climate of being heard. And then you complimented me for joining this circle because of this, for this reason.
Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you, Helena.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I nominate Sophia.
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to say something about before. I found it very interesting, the point that you made about, and also Patrick talked about this a little bit, but especially you made the point of the resolution not being possible with certain people, and I feel this is, it has a lot of truth in it. But I think this question opens up different levels. On a more practical level, I feel that this is the reality, that if you are in a certain context, for example, in your XR group or whatever, in some group, and you have a conflict, and somebody that that's part of the conflict doesn't want to participate in the resolution, it's not going to work. So I feel this is very obviously true. I think so far, yeah.
So you want to talk about the thing that I and Patrick mentioned, that with some people there it is impossible to find a solution, and the way you see this is from different kinds of levels. And one level is the practitioner. Was that what you said? Practical, yeah. Level where you have a conflict in your XR group and one person doesn't want to take part in finding a solution, and you see that as, you can see that in real life that is difficult.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so this is like a time and space situation where you cannot, you have this person and he wants this and this, and if he says he doesn't want to, then it's not possible. But what we can always do is, I think, make a climate that, create a climate that enables people to want it, to feel safe, to want to create the resolution, or to at least address the conflict. I think this is where what we can do. Also with general conflict, generally the many thousand conflicts in society that also contribute to climate change, like for example, housing crisis and stuff like that, where the people feel impoverished and they are not emotionally willing to do something in a climate where they have this survival mode.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that you have to create a sort of safety for the people so that they would want to solve the conflicts. It seems like safety is something really important that you see should be the foundation for this kind of conflict resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's like a conflict resolution by conflict prevention. So it actually doesn't address the exact question of this meeting. It's more the prevention question. But I think like safety is really important there, and I mean not only material safety, but also especially emotional safety. I think that's a very, very hard topic in society in general.
Mm. Yeah, so what you're also talking about is preventing conflicts, and by that you mean creating sort of like emotional safety for people, emotionally safe environments. Basically, that's what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel kind of helpless with the actual conflicts, but I want to learn here from from our conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to learn from this environment. Yeah.
Okay.
Bill?
Okay. Listening?
Yeah. That's I'm really glad that Helena bring up this topic of safety, because I've been thinking about that through listening on to this conversation, that the most important thing that I think would help people solve conflicts is to have good leaders. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay. So you felt that Helena's issue of safety was really important and it really resonated with you, and that you're, in thinking about it, you think that good leaders who would really help as far as dealing with conflict.
Yeah, because they are basically the foundation. They create the foundation of that group. So if the leader is traumatized and has a lot of issues and is scared of conflict, or to the opposite, is very like conflict seeking, that is the environment that he or she is gonna create.
So you're saying that the leadership, you're describing why leaders are important, and their emotional state is important, either leading to possibly a pathological avoidance of conflicts to a pathological engagement in conflicts.
Yeah. I wrote things down about this.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's also about this. I always bring up trauma, or often, but I think that people join groups for different reasons. Some people, there's a reason to genuinely want to create a better world, but some people are trauma driven. So I see like the issue there, that there needs to be people who genuinely want to support the world. And if people come in with a lot of trauma and I call it toxic behaviors, that's a problem that I don't see. I think they need to go to therapy first before they go out into the world and want to do it a better place, basically.
Okay. So you're seeing that there are different types of people join groups for different reasons. And I'm kind of reading into it. There's sort of a continuum from people who are trauma driven and they're still dealing with their own internal issues to people who are more not trauma driven or more able to focus on the issues facing us as a whole. And that, the trauma driven people also need to acknowledge that they need to work on themselves and deal with some of these things.
Yeah, and a good leader should be attuned to other people and what's going on for them. So a good leader should be able to see sort of like maybe take it to their level of understanding of solving conflicts. Because I think that if the leader is not attuned to this kind of problem, it will be problematic. That's how I see it.
Okay. So again, you're focusing on the importance of the leader and how they need to be attuned with the people that they're leading and their issues and encourage them and create structures to move them along from that trauma to the more, extroverted, let's deal with the problem.
Yeah, and even seeing sort of like, okay, this person is not so good at solving conflicts. Maybe they should do things more simpler by their own, do things on their own, and sort of like see where people are and create that kind of safe environment, because I believe that if traumatized people are mixed with healthy humans, there's going to be some unsafety in the group. Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at the large gap between people who are more or less who are traumatized and feeling very vulnerable and unstable towards people who are dealt with the trauma and are more stable, and that leader needing to be sensitive to this and then and be able to address these problems and also recognize functionality in a group, functionality and kind of be able to put people in groups accordingly.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Sally, you want to listen to me?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, so I really saw one of the things that, I just want to just have people kind of notice is the relative safety in this group. And I don't have anything. You may feel safe. You may not feel, perfectly safe. There might be ways to improve it, all of that. But I found it to be a fairly safe container. And so I'm really interested in finding out how safe everybody felt. So I'll stop there.
One thing that you noticed is the relative safety in the group, in the small group, and that you thought it was a safe group. And I guess at that point you said, how did other people feel about that?
Right. So not just in the small group, although I feel that they're here too, but also with the process. I'm talking about the process overall, the empathy circle process. What I found, and I've, taken it out into the streets and, various places, is that if you don't address people by their perceived labels and you listen to them, then more two humans evolve. And with two humans, it's a much easier conversation.
Okay, so you've taken the process of empathy circles
Mm-hmm.
to the streets with no labels. People are just people,
Mm-hmm.
to humans, and that it's been very successful, and the evolution of communication has become enormously easier, is what you've witnessed.
Right. When people are, because I have talked with people who are, completely politically opposed to me, and we made a nice connection.
Right. So you've talked to people who are entirely politically opposed
Mm-hmm.
to you, and you have been able to come up with a resolution at the end of an empathy circle.
Not a resolution, but a connection.
Connection?
Yeah,
Okay.
a connection. I can't say that I solved or they solved my problems, or I solved theirs, but there was a connection.
Okay, so you're saying that
Mm.
there wasn't necessarily a resolution at the end, but there was definitely, you have these opposing political viewpoints, a connection
Yeah.
with
And
the other person, people.
yes. And just to finish off, I feel that I too am very kind of blue and sad about the state of our political in the country, but I also see people who are still confronting their own fears, trying something new, searching, and that gives me great hope. And I'm done.
You feel you are also blue
Mm-hmm.
and sad at the state of our country,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also encouraged that people are confronting their fears
Mm-hmm.
here and elsewhere.
Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you, Sally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Who do you choose, Sally?
Okay, Sophia.
Okay.
Sophia,
You're muted.
I'm not.
No, Sophia's muted. Can you hear us, Sophia? Okay, we can't hear you because you're muted.
Yes.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Cooking with gas. All right.
I did take a class with James Green. I thought it was a good class a couple years ago, and have talked with someone who was doing one of those the empathy circle with him because of severe frightening conflict. And I just think that
Sally, I don't mean to interrupt, but we're going to be pulled back into the other room. I don't know if you see it
right.
on the screen Because you.
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
There is Marilite gave me there's a list of signals, hand signals that I believe were used in the past by the empathy efforts done by leaders and groups. I have it. I could give it to.
Okay, people
For
are.
of you, we had to break our talk of was
Oh yeah, sorry about
capable
that. We
capable
wanted.
to say few words.
So you can stop your